Welcome back. We're looking at loss of biodiversity in Nigeria. Oil spills, desertification, and loss of natural habitat all constitute some of Nigeria's greatest environmental challenges and also affect biodiversity. More than 65% of Nigerians live off nature and its goods. Farming, fishing, logging, and manufacturing are all examples of this. 70 to 80% of Nigeria's original forests have disappeared through logging, agriculture, city expansion, expansion of roads, and building of industry, and this has led to the loss of plants and animals that depend on these forests, and indeed also the loss of lives as well. With the expected consequences of climate change, these losses are expected to increase.
Oh dear.
Dear, dear, dear. Well, to help us understand exactly all of this, we have in the studio Olufemi Lawson, a member, Global Environment Alert. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Also here is Ebipate Apangolo, Commissioner for Environment, Bayelsa State.
Thank you very much.
And Alade Adeleke, an environmentalist. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Nigeria has an organized system of nature preserves. Nature reserves, game reserves, national parks, in addition to forest management system. But most of the management is carried on at the state level. So let me start with the Commissioner for Environment in Bayelsa State. Bayelsa, in the southern part of the country, has some natural ecosystem that is unique to it. How has that ecosystem been?
Yes, the environment of Bayelsa State, like you have mentioned, is quite peculiar. Like the entire Niger Delta, I know it is riverine. We have a good vegetation, but for some time now, we have not been helping nature. You see, as human beings, you have to assist nature for you to get what you actually want from nature. So that has been on for some time, not until when His Excellency Honorable Henry Seraki Dixon came into power, like in the area of deforestation. A lot of activities on logging and stuff like that has been going on without proper regulation. So His Excellency, he saw this and he employed a number of young men domiciled in my ministry, the Ministry of Environment, as forest guards. So what we have done is to post these forest guards to various local governments and communities to ensure that the activities of maybe illegal people going into the forest to cut down trees anyhow is being checkmate. Also, he is coming up with a kind of, I don't want to use the word fight, but a resolve against environmental pollution from oil companies and stuff like that. So this administration is doing a whole lot to see how we can manage our environment.
Okay, we'll come back to the issue of resolve against pollution. You mentioned oil companies, but we'll come back to the role of the individuals, not just the companies themselves. Let me come to you, Mr. Adeleke. Now, I asked him that question because of the kind of environment and we're talking about handling environmental issues from the state levels. Let's leave federal first. Let's look at the states. What are the states doing? But from what you've seen so far, he's mentioned some of the things that they are doing. But what you see in other states, do you think the states are even looking at how to preserve their own biodiversity?
It's mixed. In some states, you have some activities and actions that is following the policy, and in some states, nothing much has been done. But generally in Nigeria, the states have more powers to be able to work much on the environment. One, they are the owners of the forest estates by law. They are more closer to the people and they know the resources of their states. So quick intervention in terms of responding to environmental issues are much more easier by the state governments. Mm. But generally, Nigeria has lost virtually more than 90% of the forest because the performance of states in managing at least the forest estate is not too good. Most of the forest reserves today are not in states that you can say, well, they are, very good. Most of them are overlooked, not only because the states are not working, but because the policies of the past, today's reality has gone beyond what was written earlier. And most states have a lot to do in terms of really assessing what they have now. Maybe they think by sitting in Osogbo or in Yenagua or the state capital anywhere, you think you still have those resources you are talking about without really doing on-ground assessment of what is going on. I had an opportunity of being a member of one of the gap analysis of forest reserve in Nigeria, and the study, found out that more than 45% to 50% of what is acclaimed by states to be existing forest estates are no more there. So,
and they are not aware of it.
They may be aware, but the awareness is not to the extent of what should be converted to real action. When you say you are aware, you know that things are going down. But what are you doing to change it?
Yeah, Mr. Lawson, how can a state, for instance, it has to go beyond legislation. So how can a state enforce any legislation it has regarding for deforestation?
In actual fact, I will not want to agree totally that the state in particular is not often aware of these activities. I'll cite example of states around us here, and they have a very rich history of having the best in sizes, in quality of forest reserves in the past. When you talk about Ogun State, Ondo State, moving towards Edo State, we could really know the value of what our forest reserves used to be. But today, like you rightly said, we have lost over 70% of what is actually existing on record as far as the forest reserve in this particular region is concerned. And why are we losing this? And why do we want to say government is allowed? And even if there are legislations, like you rightly said, how do we ensure that there's enforcement? What we have observed in some of our own assessment also is that the government in some of these states have turned the forests to instruments, to tools of compensating political allies and supporters. In actual fact, during our assessment of the situation in Ondo State at a particular time, we realized that most people who were illegally controlling activities within these forests were actually known political thugs, political supporters of government that find themselves in positions, and these businesses are not carried out in the night. In actual fact, if you have to travel between Benin and Lagos today, you may not be able to count the number of trucks you meet on the highway, going carrying woods, and you need to ask yourself how much these states are even making, if it's meant for economic, purposes from this. No, some people somewhere are making fortune out of what is eventually going to lead to the misfortune of a larger majority of people. The disadvantage to our ecosystem is beyond what a lot of them are saying today. And that is why I would not want to totally agree that the government may not have been aware, but the truth is that because a lot of them have become so carried away with the comfort of living in the city centers, and they don't actually know the essence. In actual fact, a lot of them see it as not really relevant to urbanization because they find themselves in privileged positions, but the dangers are enormous. And any serious government would take issue of deforestation as a purely criminal issue, like we deal with every other menace within the society. Okay. But we are not doing that.
Mr. Bangolo, they've said two things here. He said, quick intervention is better at the state level because you know your environment. He said, if you're coming from Benin to Lagos, for instance, you see trucks carrying wood. Are the states actually benefiting from some of those wood? And I said, do the people even know enough to own the biodiversity? So in your state, for instance, do the people know enough to own the animals that are unique to them to ensure that they are not killed, to own those trees and plants that are unique to them to ensure that they are not cut down? How aware are the people?
The obvious answer to that question is no. You see,
They're not aware.
The people, our people, when you get down to the communities, we are local people. And as a local man, you are far from information. You understand? So some persons don't even know the importance of the forest. The local people, they don't know. They don't even know that the forest supplies the carbon dioxide. You understand? So all of that is a gap. So what is needed from government is to ensure that you create awareness campaign, which we are doing. You understand? Some persons don't even know that there are some animals that if they are not properly taken care of, they go extinct. That is why the state government has created some forests. Like there is this forest that we have this a peony, that particular monkey, a peony monkey. You understand? In my own local government area, near a particular community called Brown, that's for a forest reserve. Apoy Creek, exactly. It has this peony monkey. Yes. So we are embarking on campaigns from time to time, going to the villages to ensure that, look, hunters don't go near there, so that generations to come will see this monkey, that there is this kind of monkey that exists. So if the people at the local level, they are quite informed about the importance of our environment, preserving nature, the answer will not be a big yes. That is why, as a government, we are trying to ensure that we embark on campaigns, organizing programs, going to the villages. Not quite long, a particular group of persons came to the Ministry of Environment, and they wanted to embark on campaign against killing this peony monkey. And we gave them all the support. We created the enabling environment for this campaign to go on.
Mr. Adelgi, you're nodding your head.
Because I was in the campaign.
Okay. But
I was in Yenagua for the campaign.
When he spoke earlier, he talked about the oil spillages. That's another angle altogether, besides the deforestation, the logging and all of that. Question of oil spills in the southern part of the country. And you can tie in the illegal minings in the northern part of the country, gold in Zamfara and all of that. All those things affect the environment negatively. But if you ask some of these companies, they will tell you that it's the people that are busting the pipelines, or the people that go behind them to go and steal from their mine sites.
The easiest thing to do is to shift blames. And the issue of pollution is a multi-stakeholder thing. The communities are there, the oil companies are there, the governments are there, the people who are enforcing laws are there. And before any oil, there may be accidental, breakages or whatever, but most of the pollution are caused by human effect. And when pollution do happen, the extent may be so bad that biodiversity far away, even beyond where the pollution started, affected. So I believe much more work needed to be done at the level of, again, the state. Wherever the resource is located, let's take Bayelsa for instance. The Bayelsa government and the oil companies operating there know. And there are community groups who also know that all these things are happening. And a stitch in time, they say it saves nine. Mechanism for managing situations of either emergencies or issues relating to pollution that can affect biodiversity needs to be put in place as a brand of a particular state and in collaboration with the partners or the people who are working on the resource there. Because spills,
you mean states can own?
States can own a mechanism of their own way of taking care of such issues, even in cooperation with the federal agencies. There is the NOSREA, that is National Oil, there's an agency specifically for that, and there's the DPR. All these people and the state where resources are, for instance, Delta, can have their own mechanism. The operators in Delta states are different from the operators in rivers. They are different from operators in, if we take oil, for instance. So you can have a kind of homegrown mechanism for control, because the effect is not going to be happening is a long-term effect. The moment spills happen, it takes years before the habitat, react and be able to replenish. So the issue is, if you just leave it and call it a federal issue, or you leave it and call it oil company issue or a community issue, then we are all going to pay for it, because we are talking of general biodiversity. And that's why I'm saying that there can be local arrangements, especially at the state level, to define a kind of brand of how to, effect solutions, immediate solutions to such things.
Mr. Lawson?
Well, issue of pollution regarding oil spillage, it's one issue that this country has not at any time taken serious. And the truth is that it's a major, we used to see it as a pollution of the environment. But if we begin to look at the consequences that have followed years of pollution occasioned by oil spillage in parts of the southern part of Nigeria, you begin to see beyond mere environmental issues. It's beginning to get to a point where some of us describe it as environmental terrorism. If you look at the implication on the people, particularly people around this place, communities, where these actions, and picking from where you started from in your submission, it's always very easy to blame the people for whenever we have oil spillage in one place or the other. But the truth is that, is it only in Nigeria or the oil producing communities in Nigeria that we have oil spillages happening in the world? There's no oil producing state in the world where you don't experience spill. And there will be operational defaults, there will be issues that has to do with maintenance, especially in a country like ours, where everybody is a lord. In a country where not even these multinational companies have a dime of respect for the authorities, for the state, you begin to imagine if truly we have to push all this blame on the communities wherever we have issues of oil spillage. There have been times that not only as local testimonies, but even reports commissioned by international organizations, there have been times that these companies operating in some of these places have been indicted. There have been times they have admitted, responsibility for some. We know the history of Shell in some of these places. The Ogoni pollution is there, and a lot of places in the Niger Delta. For how long are we going to blame the people? The truth is that we have a society that is not regulating operators, particularly in the oil sector. It's so unfortunate that we have a country where oil giants have become governments of their own within this country, and that's why we are losing not just our waters, we are losing our people. There are reports recently that have indicated how even babies, are now becoming, sorts of deformities. The cases of kidney failure very much on the rise in this region, and a lot of health hazard that as a result of pollutions occasioned by oil spill. But now we need not only to begin to call these operators to order. Government must begin.
Just hold your thoughts. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at what government is doing. Are the governments relating enough, and are you enforcing the regulations? Do the states have their own regulations that the oil companies need to abide by? We'll bring all of this in a moment. Please don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise. We're discussing biodiversity loss in Nigeria, the environmental pollution, what are the people doing, what are the governments doing. Now you're talking about regulation and government and what government needs to do. So let me take you to the commissioner here. He's talked about lack of proper regulation and sanctions. Now, as a state, yes, the oil companies most times sign agreements with the federal government. But is it that they do not have any relationship whatsoever with the state? And is it that the state cannot enforce its own laws? Because you're the host state, for instance, of maybe one or two companies. There are no state laws that you can enforce to ensure these companies do the right thing?
Well, there are state laws. But let me clear something. These oil firms are very stubborn. Yes, they undermine state institutions, they undermine the state government. In fact, as far as these IOCs are concerned, they are dealing with the federal government. Yes, the petroleum sector, the regulation of the petroleum sector is in the exclusive list, but they fail to understand that the environment is in the concurrent list. So state also has powers to formulate laws as to regulating the activities of the IOCs. But sincerely speaking, the IOCs, they undermine the state institutions. Let me also clear something, that spills are usually attributed to the people. That's not very correct. I want to say that oil spills are caused more by the recklessness of the oil companies. Why am I saying this? Crude oil was discovered and explored in commercial quantity in 1956 at Oloibiri. Now, from 1956 and now, it's over 50 years, if I'm correct. Now, since I was born, I'm over 30 years, I have not seen any oil company carrying out an activity like replacing their pipes. You understand? And even the best steel that they use, according to Mosel 2019, that the lifespan of that particular steel is maximum about 20 years. So at the end of 20 years, it is expected that that particular pipeline must have worn out its useful life. So naturally, spills will occur from time to time as a result of corrosion. Now, from 1956 and now, it's over 50 years. So virtually all the pipelines in the Niger Delta are susceptible to failures and damages and stuff like that. Now, what they do is this. Whenever there is spill, they look for any window, the IOCs, to make it look as though it was a third-party interference. There is one particular case from Ajib that came to my office. At the end of GIB, the Joint Investigation Visit, it was discovered that the spill was as a result of equipment failure. So what Ajib told us boldly, that after they had discovered the spill, they sent what they call boom. Booms, according to them, are facilities that they use to contain the spill. They said they sent the booms. Maybe 1 or 2 days later, they went back to stop the spill, that the booms were no longer there. That therefore, it is as a result of a third-party interference that they are not liable. Can you imagine? So they treat our people with levity. They come, they take our oil, destroy our environment.
Where did the booms go?
According to them, that maybe the inhabitants must have taken away the booms. Therefore, I don't even know. Therefore, it is a third-party interference, even after the admitting that it was as a result of equipment failure. So these are the issues we are contended with. You understand? They hide under federal laws, intimidate our people. Sometimes they even give small money to some groups that they feel are the ones that are going to give them problems. But then they sponsor those people against the rest of the community.
It's a state institution. I mean, are the states carrying the people along to say this is what we're doing, this is what's happening, so that they can also own this and defend their environment?
That is why, in recent times, His Excellency, like our last year's World Environment Day, though the theme of that World Environment for last year was beating plastic pollution, but because we have a peculiar problem that has been there over time, our people are dying of string diseases. You understand? So His Excellency decided, and the good people of Bayelsa State, we resolved that, look, we are on this thing saying no to oil pollution, criminalize oil pollution, because we cannot continue like this. In our own time, this must stop. You understand? There are studies that have shown that tuber crops, even pepper, this pepper we use in cooking, in one community called Calabar, in Yenogoa local government area. It's
community called Calabar?
Yeah, Calabar, not the Cross River Calabar. Anyway. And a pepper was taken to a lab, and it was discovered that pepper contained carcinogenic substances. You understand? So, and that is what we take on daily basis. That is why even the United Nations has come up to say that, I think in 2012, that look, the life expectancy rate in the Niger Delta region is 10% below the national average. People are dying every now and then. But what pains me so much is that If you call for these IOCs for a meeting, as the Commissioner for Environment, look, there is a problem between your company and so community. Come for settlement. They are going to send a gate man to you. A staff that cannot take the list of decisions on behalf of the company. So whatever you discuss, he's going to take it back to whoever. And when they go back, that is the end of the matter. They undermine us. They undermine government institutions. Even the regulations, they are not following. From 2012 to 2017, IGP alone, we have recorded over 2,000 oil spills.
God.
Yes, the records are there. Over 2,000 oil spills. Are you going to tell me that all of this were as a result of third-party interference? Okay, let's agree that maybe one of these 2,000 was as a result of equipment failure. What have you done to remedy the situation? What have you done? Have you gone for any cleanup? Have you plans of making compensation payments? None. So that is what we are exposed to.
We're also contending with erosion and landslide issues. About 2 weeks ago, we saw a case in Edo State. We saw another one in Bayelsa.
Yeah.
And what gladdened
Coastal
my
erosion.
heart with the Bayelsa case was that the representative of that local government was with the people at the time of that disaster, in quotes. Now, how can we deal with those issues?
The issue of erosion is no more an issue that is limited to one particular state or the other, but more, some states have much more troubles with it than others. You know, before, in the past 10, 20 years, we've been concerned about the situation in Anambra because it has taken, you know, it was serious than, but some other states are now coming up. You mentioned Bayelsa. In the past 2 years, Bayelsa has also been going through that. There are minor ones in some other states. But the issue is this: there are multiple kind of causes associated with erosion. Sometimes it may be the land type or each landscape has its own peculiarity in terms of the structure of the soil. Some soils, the way soil scientists, teaches that the way you use a particular soil is not the way you use another kind of soil. There are different kinds of soil. Some soils are so fragile that you open it today and you dig a small ditch there. Rain comes, water starts taking houses and all that. And some soils are more stable in terms of how they can withhold water, how they can allow water to go. So the first thing is, in states, each of these states have their separate ecological values. And when you know the type of soil you have, you should be able to know the kind of awareness you give to your people in terms of land use. Let's take opening up for lands. People do open up lands in any place without giving consideration for whatever situation may happen to others elsewhere. That's the first thing. The second thing is that occasionally infrastructures are developed, roads, lands are opened, maybe gutters are made. Water for gutters are not led to anywhere that is direct. And when pool of water enters the soil somewhere, it's a gradual process. It starts from sheet. Sheet erosion is something that is small, opening the surface up. In the next 2-3 years, if nothing is done to cover the sheet, gully will start setting in.
Sometimes less than 2-3 years.
Less than 2-3 years.
Months.
And then, when real rain starts and there is mass movement of water, then gully becomes gorges. And that is when landslides will start happening. And the moment the soil is open somewhere, then opportunity for expansion of erosion.
Quickly, we're winding now, so let's look at solutions. Yeah. For the erosions, for instance, now, coastal erosion and all those erosions, what solutions?
One, for coastal erosion, you know that we have the natural system supports the seashore. Mangroves, my honorable commissioner would know that mangroves tie together the seashore very well. We've lost much of mangrove ecosystem in some places, and where natural system supports life, when they have been destroyed, there's opportunity for water to move in and start eroding more. That's one. For inland areas, when you open up forest, for instance, you start from forest opening. Indiscriminate opening of landscape, causes all these things. So there should be more awareness for our people to know how to cover the soil and the land very well. The third thing is opportunity for afforestation. You have an opportunity of restoring large tracts of places. In most cases, when you put vegetation on even degraded areas, there's recede. Water is receded, and then the movement of water becomes gentle and slower. And then the ability to dig deeper will be reduced. So you can reforest or reclaim areas of higher erosion. Reclamation is what there's an agency with the federal government now that is assisting on reclamation. Reclamation is possible, but it's costly. So the best thing is to avoid, erosion to start.
So Lawson, in closing.
Well, I think there's more need for awareness, and in doing this, even though the civil society has been doing a lot, in letting the people aware of the implications of some of these issues we have addressed, particularly as it affects the immediate environment. When you look at use of oil spill, for instance, it actually has a direct and an immediate impact on communities around where these issues are happening. And now I want to sincerely appreciate what you are doing in Bayelsa State. I followed that a lot on the social media about how government is now sensitizing the people to reclaim their communities, to reclaim their environment. The Rise for Bayelsa campaign I watched it on channels, very laudable. It must be followed up by other actions that will mobilize citizens, not only to protect their environment, but also, question government and institutions that are responsible for some of these issues that are confronting our environment today. So the awareness must increase. You must also work, with the civil society groups that are doing a lot of advocacy in this regard. And if we do that, there are tendencies that we'll achieve. If you look at the superhighway construction in Cross River and the level of awareness of the people concerning the implication of that project on their livelihood, on their ecosystem, in particular, you understand the need to actually carry the people along. Okay. So we need to mobilize the people to be aware and of course call these institutions to order.
It's okay. I think it all boils down to deliberate resolve by individuals, by governments to support nature. Yes. Because we are looking at nature and a lot of things are eroding away. So I think government must have that deliberate resolve, and even individuals. Tree planting wherever you think it is necessary for you to assist nature, for nature to give back to you. I think that must be a conscious effort from government and even individuals. In the area of oil pollution, I think government should also make it a very serious resolve to look at it. Look at the laws governing the petroleum industry, the environment, and also prevail on the IOCs to ensure that the area they are operating, they treat it with all amount of seriousness, and let them see how they can change all their pipelines. Because anytime a spill occurs, they want to attribute it to third-party interference, which is not correct. We have lost our common wealth as a people, as fishermen, as farmers. We cannot plant. My grandmom go to fish to send me to the university. But today, there are no fishes in the river anymore. So please, conscious effort by government, individuals, let us assist nature. Right. Because the Niger Delta environment is going down. Thank God for Governor Dixon, who has said, look, in our own time, we must get back our environment.
You just have to bring that in. Our marketing will come and see you. Thank you very much, Olufemi Lawson, member, Global Environment Alert. Ebi Pate Apangolo, Commissioner for Environment, Bayelsa State. Alade Adeleke, environmentalist. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts. Let's hope that those that need to hear heard, and the people are also watching and heard you as well. So that let's all